Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today I have a very special guest. He's in 100 bands. He's been in 100 bands. He'll be in 100 more. You know him best as Devin Townsend. How are you, good sir?
I'm good, man. I think 100 bands I think it's been five, but
It sometimes feel, you know what? It's because like sometimes so many albums have like so many different moods and vibes
oh
that
sure, yeah, yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
it kind of does feel like,
Fair enough.
Epic Cloud sounds nothing like Ziltoid, and that sounds nothing like the
True.
Strapping Young Lad stuff. You know what I mean?
I get your point, and I agree. Actually, I agree with that. I think that's an interesting part of the whole thing. Is something that I still am very blown away that I'm able to get away with to some degree because I unfortunately don't feel like I have a choice. So every time I do something, it's because I feel like it's what I need to do, and I just have to keep my fingers crossed that people will follow me down that road.
It's exciting because I can only think of like a few other artists in general, not even within rock per se, that can jump from genre to genre, from sound to sound, and
Mm.
still, be relevant and be successful. Like people still like a chunk of the discography. Like it's really fascinating. I feel like honestly, I feel like a lot of young musicians could probably learn from someone like you. Like don't be afraid to switch it up and to try new things.
Well, I appreciate that, but I would also say that maybe the reason why I've managed to quote unquote get away with it is because it was never once meant to be provocative. And I've said that before, and I'll say it again. It's not like I finish a record, I'm like, well, what's the next thing I can do, and how can that be troublesome to the fan base? It's
Hmm.
eh, the connecting thread between all these things is I do them because that's what I feel most interested in at the time. And typically, what happens is after I've made one album, whatever that style is, the amount of obsession and energy that I put into making it typically means that the next thing I do is going to be the opposite. I just get sick of it. I finish something, I'm like, okay, I'm done with that for now. Whether or not if it's like dark, the next one's inevitably kind of light. If one's
Hmm.
chaotic, the next one's more linear. It's so the reason why I do these things is because it feels like a natural progression for me. So if anybody, as you had suggested, um, would be able to take any inspiration from that, I would say that the foundation of it is not the process of doing that. It's not like this. It's not like a technique. It's just like you got to follow where your heart goes. I mean, you have to, and sometimes that's a risky endeavor.
Where do you feel that your heart took you on this new album, Lightwork?
Well, heart and mind, I guess. Um, it was an awful year. I was really stressed. I felt like I was gonna have a heart attack. I there's a like most of us, a lot of us, there was a lot of really awful things that were happening in my life and in a lot of our lives, and I felt that music has always been a way for me to kind of sort out how I'm feeling from time to time, or how I'm processing even more than feeling. And I thought, you know what? If you focus on something that's more optimistic this time and a little bit more chill, that may go a long way in helping you keep your keep your balance so you can be there for the people that need you to be balanced. And so it was unexpected because I do know that there's a lot of my colleagues and peers who have released things that are the exact opposite, like the heaviest thing that they've done, like the
Hmm.
most brutal thing that they've done, the most pissed off thing they've done. And I wish I could say that my reason for not doing that was because I had thought it through, but it isn't. It just happened that way. I felt like at the end of it, I was like, God, man, I can't, I don't have the emotional bandwidth left for more intensity right now. Things are already intense, family, friends, all sorts of things, right? And so I
Hmm.
just found myself writing something to make it a little more uh chill, not even chill, just more cool
Hmm.
as opposed to hot for me, right?
I definitely felt that listening to a good chunk of light work.
Yeah.
It's I would say, I want to say upbeat, but I don't know if that's the right term. It just has a, I think you put it nice. I think you put it well. Like it has a cooler vibe in comparison to something more crazed, like Empath, which had all these guest stars and
Yeah,
samples and I mean there's narration and all kinds of like psychedelic textures, but Lightwork also feels a little bit more accessible. Like I could introduce anyone to it.
sure. Yeah, that's kind of where I was at because I don't know if you had heard, but prior to this, during the pandemic, I did a big project called The Puzzle that was really chaotic. It was a film and two albums and really like 60 people. And it was really an intense thing. And I released it independently, and it was the most chaotic thing that I've done ever, I believe. And as soon as that was over, because that was so much work to make the puzzle, my reaction to doing that was just like, man, I just want something chill. I just want a good song that's got a cool beat and a good melody, and I want it to be I want it to have depth in terms of the production and the mix and the layering and all this. But I just came out of this incredibly chaotic project, and it just seemed like I was like, okay, next up is the opposite of that, and that's probably why this one ended up like this.
Would you say that Lightwork, working on Lightwork and now its release has been a therapeutic process for you with that in mind?
Oh, they all are. All the records are. But not in an overt way. It's not like um, I'm putting such importance on it that it's like, oh, this is my therapy, and it's just that's how it plays out. It's, I guess, maybe some people as a coping mechanism drink. They're like, I'm too stressed. I need to have a beer here, or what have you. And I guess for me, music has always been kind of that way for me. So if I can work through what's going on in my head at any particular time, uh, because of the nature of my personality, it tends to come out as music. And the fringe benefit of that is when the record's finished, I'm able to look at it and listen to it and say, "Oh, that's where you were." But it's not with that intention straight out. It's not like I'm thinking, "Oh, I know where I'm at and I got to write a record about it because it's of such importance." It's just I write, and at the end, if I get it to the point where the music and the art and the concept isn't irritating in me anymore, that's kind of how I work it. I just whatever bugs me, I have to get rid of, right? And then by the end, I'm able to say, "Oh, that's where you were. Okay, you were looking to sort of cool down a bit before all this takes off again." And it may be the case that there's no place for that right now. It may be the case that the scene that I'm involved with, scene in general, is like just wants to rage, and I totally respect that. But that's not where I was at, and maybe there's some other people that felt the same, but maybe there isn't. Who knows?
I definitely feel like the mood in music right now is like, COVID, political unrest, social anguish. Let's
Totally.
rage, let's do this, let's do that. And I
Totally.
understand that as well, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, I get maybe 20 or 30 like death metal or black metal records sent to me a day that are just evil and vile. And I don't know. I think there's an environment right now where it's like we need to start being a little bit more optimistic. Like I think an album like
I
Lightwork
agree.
is what people kind of need right now.
Well,
Or
I mean, that would be nice, and I appreciate that, man. But at the same time, who knows? Because it's like I like you, whenever I hear things about political, social unrest and sticking it to the man and society's fucked and there's no hope, and I'm just like, oh my God, dude, that's all I've been hearing for years.
mm-hmm.
It's like when I the function of music for me is like an escape a lot of the times. And I just don't have the energy for that right now. I'm like, guys, I know shit's fucked. Like, I get it, man. Like, I'd be
Like
surprised.
no
I
arguing.
no arguing. And like, it's not like I hear this and I'm thinking, really? Shit's fucked? Wow. I had no idea. This is crazy. Things have been a walk in the park over here, right?
I
I
would
think
think if anyone is like turning on the news today and is like looking at everything and being like, "Huh, that happened, really?"
crazy.
I'm jealous of that man. I'm jealous of that
Same,
person. Like,
same.
bless you.
I,
You were able to live the last 2 years in an ignorant bliss of wonderness.
well, this is why I feel like when I started writing, it surprised me too, because I was thinking, oh, maybe that's what will come out of me. Because I never try and premeditate it. I don't think, oh, I'm going to make something optimistic or I'm going to make something crazy. I just write. So when I first started, I thought, oh, I wonder if that's what's going to come out because of the amount of, people dying in your life and suicides and like all this shit. I'm just like, maybe that's what's going to come out. I'm going to want to write about this stuff. But as I started writing, I was like, fuck no, dude. Like, man, maybe a year down the line, once we've had, we can take a breather or whatever, I can get back to that. But right now, I honestly was feeling during the writing of this record, I'm like, man, I'm so high strung. And the people around me are like, I'm watching family members like I'm sure same with you, anybody.
Hmm.
Some people, my buddies are going fucking crazy, or like buddy there is disintegrating. And I'm just thinking, uh, well, the only way I can provide something for the people that I care for that isn't just going to compound that is to try and keep myself together. And although I wrote a couple of heavier things, it's on the Nightwork album. I just didn't care. You know what I mean? I was listening to it and I'm thinking, yeah, no, it's heavy, it's cool. But it wasn't like speaking to me. It was just more of that. And then again, it's lockdown and all that as well, where you're basically your only portal to the outside world for a year or whatever it was social media. It's just such a toxic cesspool that again I'm thinking more on even a self-preservation level. Like I've had enough of this, man. Like I and it's not like it's going away. It's not like it's getting better.
Hmm.
So you don't have to worry that if you step away from it, it's not going to be there when you come back. It's like, no, man, there's
Yeah,
more than
the
enough for everybody.
the Kanye West Twitter drama will still be there tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Or
Oh my God.
whatever it is. Who knows? Maybe something
No,
else
yeah,
happened.
whatever the drama du jour is, right? And yeah, exactly. And it's funny that when I do separate myself from it, not like it ceases to exist, but it kind of does in a weird way. It's I remember when, in the middle of the 2020-21 thing, there's all the social unrest and all this. And it's so compelling because how the algorithms work. It's like, oh my God, scrolling and clicking and like, I'm afraid, what's going on? It's like the dopamine hits and all this sort of thing. But then when I went away to a place without any technology for a week, and prior to leaving, while I'm scrolling, I'm like, it's going to be any minute now, everything's going to be over. Like any minute now, the world's over. Like that's it. But I went away, and when I came back, it was like, well, the world was still there, and all those dramas were still like, it was just another thing.
Hmm.
It's like, so I started thinking how much of it's my own fault for just like getting addicted to that sort of technology too, right? Where you wake up in the middle of the night and you're just like, oh, I'm just going to scroll Instagram or scroll Twitter, and that just I think it affected me in a way that helped me with this record. It was it almost seemed I had a moment thinking that making something kind of optimistic and not chill, but like a little cooler than warmer, was like the most rebellious thing I could have done for myself at that time. It's like the least rebellious thing I could have done would just be like, fuck. But the most
Just like instead of like raging, you're just like, no, let's sit on a beach and unwind together, you and me, bud.
yeah, man. In fact,
That's real rebel shit.
well, in fact, let's even take it a step further. I don't want anybody on the beach with me, man. You know what I mean?
Fair
Like,
enough.
I think that was part of it as well, as you get so frustrated by like this omnipresent bullshit, right? And I think what that does to me is it makes me crazy. And so a big part of the work that I felt I had to do on Lightwork was like, dude, don't let this stuff get to you. Like, like, not that it doesn't exist, but it exists as far as you allow it to exist. There's certain things that are unavoidable that have ramifications over us immediately or long term, politically or anything like that. But a lot of the day-to-day negativity and dramas and you know half naked people dancing and TikTok and all this sort of stuff, it's like I'm like, it just makes me like, it fills me with such noise, man, that I'm like, not only am I not going to write something heavy about it, but when I did go to write something chaotic, I wrote the puzzle, which most people were just like, what the fuck is this? it's
Hmm.
it's like just chaos. I'm like, well, that's what my input was. Like, that's how I write. It's like whatever's happening in my life is what I'm going to write about.
It made
Not
for a great companion piece to the puzzle as well. Like the two records together just created a really beautiful, immersive kind of atmosphere of emotions.
Yeah, thank you. And that's what I want. I love the puzzle. I thought it was just so cool, man. But it's like a lot of people didn't get it at all because I think that when I said, "Hey, I'm making something crazy," they're thinking, "Oh, it's going to be brutal," as opposed to like, "No, this is just abstract." But the difference is the input for what I was writing when it came to the puzzle was just it made no sense. Like all the things that we had to deal with over the past couple of years made no sense. And not only that, on any side of any argument were infinite amounts of confirmation bias websites that you can go to. So if you are firmly set in almost anything, you can have backup to that to the point where there's like truth is just this illusion. And so at that point, I think what you're responsible for, what I felt I was responsible for is, well, it's up to me to keep myself together here because I got too much going on in my life and too many people that I care for that aren't doing particularly well, that it's not going to help if I'm going bananas too. So the writing process for me almost had as its foundation, you got to just keep your eye on the ball. And that's what the lighthouse in the thing is meant to represent. Like the music was that light
Hmm.
for me. And, I was just one of the boats that was trying not to crash into the shore. And I think that at the end of it, because I was also working with a producer, which was really, it was good, but very difficult. And there was so much drama and struggle and all these sorts of things that were involved with it that by the time it was finished, and I remember listening back to it, I remember being really pleased with the fact that it was balanced because it seemed like at certain points, like there's no way you're going to be able to get through this and keep that intention because it's too crazy of a period. And that's why even at the end of the record, there's this little girl's voice that sings "We Won." I said, "We won, we won." And I remember that was really a good moment for me where I was like, yeah, yeah, man. It's like, although it's difficult, it's within your capacity to keep your shit together. And I was very thankful for that experience, actually.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, man.
You've described Lightwork as being a bridge between continents. Is the idea that this is supposed to be a unifying album? Because it definitely feels like this was a very a therapeutic and important experience for yourself. Is that the goal for everyone else listening to this as well?
No, I mean, it'd be nice if somebody likes it, but I mean, I don't think I'm doing like a service. You know what I mean? It's not like this is like an altruistic act. It's just, I've always written for my own sake. I do have an eye on the people who support it because I want to make sure that they like it, of course. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't release it. But it was therapeutic, sure, but in the same way that they all are, in the same way that so many other things in life end up being like the lessons that you learn, right? Like if someone close to you passes away, there's a lot of times a lot of reflection that comes from that, and and I think you learn from everything, depending on how eager you are to learn, right? And so the work for me with making music is a byproduct of me just trying to sort my shit out in a lot of ways. And if I get it right, it doesn't bother me. And in a best case scenario, somebody likes it. But there's no like ulterior motive. There's no mission or anything like that, right?
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a project called The Moth. I know that it's something I've heard about it a little bit online here and there. And from what I understand, the idea is that this would become the next big project after Lightwork. Um,
Maybe,
is
maybe.
other things in the pipeline then?
Oh, there's always things in the pipeline, and I apologize I didn't completely answer your last question about a bridge between two continents. What I was meaning by that was empath felt like a before the pandemic, and we're not on the other side of this shit yet. You know, there's wars and everything too. So
Hmm.
Lightwork and Puzzle were these unexpected things that happened on the bridge, metaphorically speaking, between the before and after the pandemic. And what happens after the pandemic? Is that the moth? Is it like any number of these projects I've been toying with? Well, I would say that in the same way as I didn't expect the puzzle or light work to be what came out, I can make assumptions on what it might be, but I don't know. Like, I don't know. I have to settle into where we are and where I am post pandemic before I can get an accurate read on what it is that's going to be compelling. Because you never know. You never know. It's like you can go into it saying, I'm going to make a heavy record, and you end up making a country record. Or you say, I'm going to make a pop record, and you end up making a bizarre, abstract thing, right? Like best laid plans don't account for much.
I gotta say, I do really like the idea of a Devin Townsend country record.
I
That
did
sounds
one.
really cool.
I did one, man. The casualties are cool, and that's like
That's more like kind of blues soul, though, isn't it? That's the vibe I
maybe,
got from
yeah.
it.
Oh, maybe, yeah. I when I think of country, the type of country that I like, it's always like old stuff, like the Johnny Cash and like Merle Haggard and all those sorts of things. I don't have a lot of desire to do new country for sure, but I like the old like crusty stuff. And Che and I have started writing another casualties as well, so that's in the pipeline somewhere. But I think I've been doing this long enough now that I know not to say up next is X because it never seems to work out.
I always hate it when like a band is like, no, we're definitely gonna do this next, and then it's like, nothing comes about. Like I can think of so many big rock bands and metal bands where it's like new album coming soon, and then you don't hear anything about it for a long, long time. It makes more sense to just create what feels natural, what's organic, and what makes sense.
Well, I learned that that makes more sense to me after years of doing what you just suggested was irritating with other bands. Like I used to do that too. So, but
It
I
makes sense from a PR perspective, don't get me wrong, but at the same
sure,
time, it's
yeah,
like, all right.
yeah. I think it's like I think it's oh man, I drive the PR people crazy too because it's always different than what I said it was going to be. I still do that with them, which is delightful for them. But I think that you at least I can only speak for myself. As I've been doing this for as long as I have, I feel that I've learned a few lessons, and one of which is to just do what you're going to do. I think the next thing that I need to learn is just to not apologize for it, but one step at a time.
You've worked with a lot of really cool people over the years too. Steve Vai, Chad Kruger. Are there any other collaborators that you're going to be working with in the future? Like maybe for another project or contributing to a Devon record, or maybe you contribute something to theirs?
It's The only reason I've ever done those things is because they kind of were in my line of sight as opposed to seeking them out. So short answer is no. Um, and a lot of the reason why I do have occasionally collaborations with people is because it's usually something unexpected, like we're on tour together, or we ended up being friendly with each other, or we have certain things in common that seem to make sense, or it seems, like a mismatch, which could be interesting in the long run. But the idea of working with people for any reason other than happenstance is not really in my mind. Like I don't, and I got nobody that I am actively thinking one day I'm going to work with, Nana Muscuri or whatever. It's like
Hmm.
I work with Enya.
That'd be fun.
I'd
I'd
love
I'd I'd listen to that. Hell yeah.
it. I love Enya, man. I think the I think that those sorts of things are, they're absurd enough for me to say out loud. But when it comes to anything plausible, no.
Oh, fair enough. I got one more question for you, and then I'm gonna let you go. I'm
Sure.
I'm only asking this more so because like the metal nerds are gonna go crazy if I don't.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned earlier like bringing in some heavier elements for Lightwork and then also for the companion piece Nightwork. I know that you've played some more strapping young lad stuff on some of the few tours you've done these past couple years. What are the chances of like a strapping young lad album, or maybe
Oh
like
man.
I know I can already
I
tell
can't
by your
believe you
face.
asked. I can't believe you asked.
I only ask because other people will drive me crazy if I don't.
Well, get in line, brother, because that's what happens to me, man. Um, dude, I mean, the answer to that is I've said it 1,000 times, so I'm sure that if people really don't know, they don't care enough to pay attention, right? So
Absolutely. I had a
online.
feeling that would be your answer for the record.
No problem.
I didn't expect you to go, oh, that would be a great idea.
What an interesting idea. Gosh, I've
I've
not
never
heard
thought
that
of that.
ever, man. Yeah, but I mean, it's like I do understand the question, and I do understand why it's asked. I really do. Um, but I also don't want to. I got to be careful with the answer because you don't want to. I think it's easy to get so irritated by the question that you end up being flippant about it. You know what I mean? And then you end up being insulting to people when the question's coming from a place of people really, really like it and they really want it. So I'll say this: the same thing that made strapping work so well when I was 25, uh, whether or not you think Lightwork's worth a shit or the puzzle's worth a shit, it's the same process. So the same thing that yielded that is the same thing that yielded this. And the only reason strapping existed back then is because I was being true to myself. That's the only reason, because back then that was my truth. The process of making this music is rooted in trying to unfuck myself as I get older. Because when I was younger, I had a lot of issues. And so if people really love something that happened at any point in my career, whether or not it's empath or strapping or ziltoid or epic cloud, anything, then my hope is that they would understand that the thing that they probably appreciate about it is it's coming from a place of honesty. And if I can't be honest about something, the thing that people will like about it will not be there. Absolutely. And I would prefer to be disliked for what I am than to be loved for what I'm no longer. And strapping is a huge part of my life, was a huge part of my life, and I love all those guys and I still talk to them. However, the nature of what I did made it such that the lessons that I needed to learn from that period of my life were reflected in the content. And now it's not a part of my life in a way that I can relate to. And more so, it's not a part of my life in a way that I have any desire to go back to. And there's going to be a certain amount of people that would hear that and they'd be like, yeah, you've heard he said that before. I get it. I love the band, but I get it. I can respect that. There's going to be a certain amount of people that are just like, fuck that guy. What he needs to do is do that because it's the only thing he's ever done that's worth a shit, and everything else sucks. And there's going to be another part that just says strapping who. But for me, brother, I'm just like, as hard as this is to say, because it's been such a weird couple of years, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at as a dude. And that's not worth sacrificing to go back to a time when I wasn't happy.
No, absolutely. And you know, I would say to those fans who are like, "Oh, well, he was better when he was this or whatever," you know, like everyone
Really.
started somewhere and everyone grows up and moves on. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Not everybody. Not
not
everybody.
everybody. There are exceptions. But I think about like before Vinnie Paul passed away and people asked him about the Pantera reunion and he was like, "No, that's not what I am now. That's not what I want to be. That's, you know, I don't
But
want to do."
every
Yeah,
band,
every
every
band
band,
for that matter.
every band will get that, and they'll have to deal with the same thing. So I accept it 100%. I just also think that it's like, you know, if people like, I was mowing the lawn the other day and I listened to the new Lamb of God record, and that's a pissed off record, man.
Hmm.
It's like maybe that's a record for them because I can't do that right now, buddy. I don't got it in me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean
So,
that's a good point too. To people who are like just really want that strapping young lad, that sound. It's like there's tons of heavy stuff out there, man. You just got to look for it.
and people would say to me, "Yeah, but no one did it like you." And I said, I can't do it like I did either." The analogy I've been given over the course of these interviews, um, it's like there's a drought and there's a well that you used to get water from, and you used to rely on that water. But there's a drought, and that water isn't in the well anymore. It's like being angry at an artist for not being able or willing to do things like they did half a lifetime ago is the equivalent of somebody standing in front of an empty well and yelling at it. It's like, or you're at a smorgasbord and they run out of the one thing that you like, and they're like, "Dude, there's no more."
No more
And he's,
jalapeno
there's
poppers?
no, and they're just
What
like,
is this?
"I want jalapeno."
It's like, sir, there's
Listen,
plenty of mozzarella sticks. No,
there's
there isn't.
tons, there's lots of them. All I wanted was a jalapeno. It's like, yeah, but we don't have any, dude. Like, sir, you're gonna have to leave. I'm not leaving until I get jalapenos.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America and I can
I
have as
thought this.
many jalapeno poppers as I like.
Oh my god, I think it's like, but I do understand because fucking poppers are good, man. But if there's none, I don't know what to say. You can yell at the chef all
Devin
you want, man, but if there's none,
Devin Townsend is not going to freak out at the chef. That's good to know.
I'll freak out at myself first. But brother, I feel that if there's anything the pandemic has made me recognize is it's like I want the audience to like what I do. I want people to enjoy what I do, and hopefully they can participate in the emotions that I'm trying to get out of it. But I'm pretty much done trying to please people, man. You know, it's like you got to do what's right for you. And I think that the hope is that through that, if you're trying to do it from a good vantage point, then hopefully other people can benefit from that work. But if not, I mean, dude, I can't feel anything if people are yelling at me for more jalapeno poppers and I don't have them. You know, it's like, man, I'm sorry. Can you just like, you know,
It's like, you sure you don't want a breadstick? You sure
I
you
don't know.
sure you
I'm
don't
dude.
want some spinach puffs?
I'm past even giving an alternative. I'm like, this is what I got right now. If you don't like it, I'm sure there's another buffet that can suit your needs. You
Hell yeah. Extremely well said. Uh,
know.
Devin, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you.
You
Uh,
too.
do you have any plans on coming up to Toronto anytime for a show or even just for shits and giggles?
I don't know if Toronto's where I'd go for shits and giggles at this point. I'd go to Hawaii, but
Understandable.
yeah, man,
Hawaii's much warmer,
I like
especially
Toronto, but
now.
I like Toronto for sure. But it's like it's a busy place, man. Yeah, no, I think 2023 we've got a North American thing planned, but until such time that I've got all my ducks in a row with what I've been trying to organize for this, for Lightwork and everything that's going on now. I don't know. I'm going to
Fair
give it
enough.
a
No
solid
worries.
maybe, one of these.
Hell yeah. I can live with a solid maybe. I can live with
Yeah,
the gladiator sideways thumb. I'm not
that's what
picky.
it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Devin Townsend, make sure you check out Lightwork when it comes out. It got delayed, didn't it? I think I read
Yeah,
something about it getting delayed.
only
So
by a week. And also I would encourage people to not if they don't want to either. I think it's
yeah, don't
people
walk in expecting strapping young lad 2.0.
oh dude, and if you do it's on you, man. I think it's like also people said, I spent all this money. What the fuck? And I'm like, then dude, just listen to it first. Download it, but it's on Spotify. Listen to it. If you hate it, don't buy it. But
Yeah.
if you want me to continue, please help because it's a messed up industry, right? But man, I'm not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. I'm just trying to do what's right for me, and that's where I'm at.
Hell
Take care
yeah.
of yourself, my friend.
You have yourself a good day, Devin. Pleasure
You
speaking
too,
with you.
brother. Talk to you soon.
Booyah. Devin Townsend. I'm elated. Oh my God. Press this button to subscribe. Other videos here. Check out Lightwork when it comes out. Y'all have yourself a fantastic fucking day.